Welcome back to the Lessons for Tomorrow podcast, the motivational poster in your ear. I'm your host, Tim Ahlenius, VP of Strategic Initiatives at americaneagle.com. In this episode, it's a special one today as we are recapping the Shoptalk 2023 conference that just happened out in Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Something like that. But we're going to bring it back to you live. So it's not staying in Vegas. So it's going out to you on lots of different channels. And we're excited to be joined by Brendan Cameron and Roger Walker. Quick intros for everyone who is not aware of you. Brendan's been on the show in the past. Roger, this is your first time, I believe.
This is my first time.
Awesome. First to many more.
First to many more. It's great to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Why don't you start off then and kick us off with your introductions?
Yep. So my name is Roger Walker. I'm the Director of E-commerce here for americaneagle.com, and it's great to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Brendan?
And I'm Brendan, the Director of Strategy for our B2B division.
Wonderful. Appreciate both of you being here. All three of us had the fortunate opportunity to go out to Vegas for the Shoptalk show. I was only there for 2 days, but you guys stayed the entire length of the show, which was 3. And overall, you had a fun time. Great.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Very interesting.
Good. So if we had to talk about a lesson from a past Shoptalk show compared to this show, what would that be? Is this first show for both of you?
Yeah, I was going to say. This was
wait
the first
a minute.
time.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm the only one who's been to Shoptalk before out of the whole group. How did I not know this?
I'm not allowed on many show floors.
Yep. And the last time I was supposed to go was unfortunately right at the start of the pandemic. So that got
okay. I thought there was that one. So, all right. Well, I was excited to see a show that actually had a lot of people at it, and shows are starting to come back. Shoptalk, especially in the e-commerce space. Lots of different technologies, lots of different opportunities to learn. Roger, I know you made it to a lot of different sessions. Brendan, a few as well. Let's talk about some highlights from those. What's one of the favorite highlights that you had from a session at Shoptalk?
So I think for me, the interesting point was it wasn't so much technology focused as more it was focused on what our clientele needs to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something we've seen quite often where people go, I have to have this technology or else. And in reality, it's more about their leadership buy-in on their side of the project. There was a lot of a lot of sessions about that this year, which I thought was really fascinating. And then just kind of on a quick side, zero-party data was also a huge topic this time. I thought that one was really fascinating too.
What's zero-party data for those who don't know, who are listening or watching?
So yeah, it was funny. I didn't know what zero-party data was either. It's not how I've heard it referred to, but it's basically what I would have considered first-party data given directly to a client through their interactions. So, typically we see this with an email sign-up. That would be zero-party data. So that's they dived into that a little bit more.
They talked at all about the privacy aspects of data because that seems to be rampant across the U.S. again.
That was kind of the whole point about it, is that third-party data and third-party cookies really aren't going to be reliable long-term, right? We've already seen it with GDPR in the EU, and then CCPA, I believe is what it is out in California.
It's now CCRA with the
CCRA
revise
now?
So.
We know that Canada is looking at something similar. Several other states in the United States are planning to do that. Federal is looking at that as well. So it's becoming a big deal.
Finally, a federal one is coming.
I was going to say, as long as it's standard, it usually treats us a bit better.
Yes,
and
I would
replaces all 38 plus states. Last time I checked a couple years ago that had legislation in progress.
Yep.
So yeah, Colorado, Virginia, both were very close, if not launched by now, this point in 2023. So and California already revised their CCPA over to CCRA. I like to say the R stands for revise, but unfortunately it doesn't. Overall, though, privacy is a big factor. A lot of people talk about it, but honestly, from the actual user perspective, I don't see a lot of people concerned about it. The majority of projects that we have, yes, we have to put all of the correct information in place, but the amount of times that we actually see that a site is got any end user complaints about the performance of the site, or if they want to block all things that are happening on the site from a tracking perspective, most users all accept those cookies. Rarely do we ever see from the data that people are saying don't allow. And so it's just interesting to see what a big focus it's been, yet the lack of user engagement desiring to actually have that choice really isn't prevalent.
Well, I feel that it's kind of falling into the terms and conditions paradox where, they put so much wording and so much information behind it that you go right to the bottom and you say, click and accept because I don't want to look at this pop-up anymore. Which I think it kind of helps and hurts. I mean, one, when it comes to a lot of data collection, most of it is anonymous unless it is kind of malevolent in a way. But when we start turning into just automatically approving everything, we're going to fall into those same pitfalls we did with accepting loan applications or your phone contracts and things like that. So due diligence is definitely needed. I would love to see us learn from our mistakes and actually make sure it's understandable what all those privacies are. But at the same time, I'm doing a lot of work with trying to fast track things like registration processes and getting emails and membership signed up on sites through external logins.
Yeah.
So whether you're doing the sign in with my Apple ID or my Google account or my Facebook, I mean, now you're not only trading cookies with the website, you're connecting your very personal account to the website these days. So
no, absolutely. And I think that the aspect of, like you said, the terms and conditions, I would just say the readability, just make sure you're being clear in how you message about data privacy. Write it for a normal human to understand. Yes, you will probably have some aspects of legal department who says you have to write it this way. Great. That's fine. But try and make sure that you still message to the human that's reading it at the end of the day.
ELI 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Explain like I'm 5.
I thought kind of a subtopic that came out of that when they were talking about this data. We've all seen it, right? Where you go to the website and it says, we'll give you 10% off if you sign up for our email. One of the data points that they had, and they were actually showing statistics that back this up, is that that's really no longer effective, right? And what they were seeing is if they didn't put it behind some kind of offer, they just said, sign up for our email as part of a registration for an account. They were actually getting more buy-in at that point as opposed to try and artificially create buzz around it. So I thought that was actually fairly interesting. And we've seen that trend recently in a lot of our implementations. We don't want those pop-ups that basically get in the way of people shopping, right? We want them to get to the catalog as quickly as possible, not sign up for our email as a first step.
Yeah.
It's important. We need the email. That's how we do a lot of marketing, but not as first step.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'm going to choose to take my advantage of data privacy and the moment right now and opt out of this topic of this conversation and request the right to erasure for anything that I've said. But overall, let's talk about the next aspect of just where a buzzword that we have talked about on several episodes of the show, headless. And is it still a buzzword? Are we past it? What is going on with that?
So I'm so happy that headless is maturing.
Yes.
Because now it's no longer like me walking into a client or a strategy and then being like, it has to be headless. Even like I actually walked by the booth for a couple of Storyblock, who's a CMS, a headless CMS, Commerce Tools, who's a headless commerce platform, Elastic Path, another great headless platform. And all of them were talking more along the lines of finding the ideal client or the ideal user. I understand with the new technology, with the new process and practice, you try to onboard as many people as possible. You get excited and you don't realize the type of ownership that you'll have for something like that. And a lot of the push, and even sitting at their booths and talking with them, not even in the sessions, they're making sure and they're validating they'll be a good cultural and good functional fit with the companies now. So there was a lot of times where, we had to be the bad guys almost and say, I'm telling you, I'm sorry, headless isn't the right move. The way that you kind of need to operate and the type of requirements there are with it, it's not a great fit. And to have that message coming from those headless technology partners is, I think, an awesome step in the right direction.
There was literally an entire session on this topic that basically said the exact same Brendan just got done saying. Not only is there a lot of things that we need to consider long term, but what is the buy-in that needs to take place? It's not one of those things where you just come to an agency like americaneagle.com and go, give me Headless, and then you're not involved. All right, there's a lot of involvement there that needs to take place, not only as part of the implementation, but as part of the cultural fit and the long-term expectations.
So when we talk about how much Headless has matured, is there, in your minds, a competitor to Headless already out there in the market as well?
Ooh, Brendan, I think I'm going to defer to you on this one.
I even before that, I was going to say that they took my idea. One of the booths there, and I believe it was Commerce Tools. One of their flyers was buzzword bingo, and I immediately thought of a couple people at our company when I thought of buzzword bingo.
I'll raise my hand to that one. I love my buzzwords and my acronyms.
I think that was fantastic. But in terms of kind of competition or what's out there, the big thing I think is the whole mock alliance piece. It seems that that's kind of the new Headless market. You're either in the mock alliance or you're not. And the kind of partnerships and I don't want to sound too high school cafeteria-ish, but kind of the niche groups that kind of pop up in that whole environment. People in the mock alliance are going to hang around, refer each other and work together. So definitely that whole, again, playing buzzword bingo with myself now, the headless and composable aspects, what platforms really work well together. That's kind of the big thing, I think. Maybe not so much competitors to it, but like the competition and what I'm seeing in that kind of ecosystem right now.
Yep. And ding, 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 you got the winning buzzword bingo because I got you to say composable without saying it. So composable is one that we have been hearing a lot about over the past 2 years. Really, I would say it's been really ramping up even more. But it was Headless for a while. Before that, it was DXP. We still have DXPs out there, and now DXPs are Headless and they're composable, or they're one or the other. And really, I just want to make sure that our listeners understand that there is value in each approach, depending on the need, as was mentioned, of your organization. So at times, yes, Headless can serve you very well, but I just want to stress, don't just try and implement Headless to implement Headless and add that buzzword into your organization. Make sure it's appropriate, that you have a clear vision and goal of how you're going to measure the success of it, and that's it's appropriate for your end users. And I think this is one of the biggest things that I see is that there's a lot of times that certain technologies are brought in or methodologies to an organization, but the thought process is more about the organization than it is about their end consumer. Whether it's services, whether it's products, whatever it may be, if you're not asking them what their needs are and marrying those into the goals of the organization, then it doesn't matter what you implement because you're going to have a lower rate of success than if you listen to them and implement towards achieving the goals that you have.
Yeah, I think internally speaking, I know Roger can probably attest to it more. It's probably a lot easier coming down that deployment path, knowing these are our needs. Here's a platform that meshes, rather than going into like the actual project and project management team going like, hey, Roger, we're going to be on Shopify. Here are the requirements. Just make it work type of thing.
No, you're definitely right there. I think something else that's also part of that is having a strong understanding of, your own business, right? We see that quite a bit where you think you know what your business is, but have you really looked at the data to see, are your shoppers, are your customers doing what you think they're doing? Right? That's always the trick. We as customers, not customers, sorry. We as our clients know their business. They know it inside, outside. They know how everything goes. So they already know the best way to find part X or product Y. Your typical clientele may not. So we inject that bias into some of our requirements.
But Roger, that's the way we've always done.
Okay, yes, because back in 1972, in shipping, George had to do that. Yes, so I have a story there, but I'm going to let it go. It's an analogy. We're not gonna go down that road.
Yes,
nobody wants to hear
back
my
over here.
Exactly. Nobody wants to hear my
We're
big
gonna stay on the pavement,
analogy.
Roger, not go off.
No,
the
I'm not going to go off the deep.
Okay.
path.
All right. So there's a lot there. Definitely, if you haven't already had conversations about Headless or Composable, just know that we're here to help. We have plenty of people who have worked on projects of both, and also on projects that didn't need either. So just want to make sure that we talk through the right solution for both achieving your goals, but also your end consumers or customers. So I'm going to keep moving us along here. What makes a project successful from a client's perspective, and closely related, when does e-commerce shine as a part of business practice in a post-pandemic world? Roger, thank you for beautifully writing that. So I'm going to go directly to you first to respond.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. So I guess the 2 points to this is with the projects that we see that are truly successful are ones that have senior leadership buy-in and they've got a stake in it, right? Oftentimes we'll have our primary point of contact. They're the ones leading the project. They're the ones making the decision, but they're doing this in a vacuum. Right? Senior leadership doesn't have visibility. It doesn't have buy-in. And these projects just kind of tend to wander with no oversight. The ones that are truly successful have a lot of top-down leadership that's involved. And then, again, we're looking at what is the best for our clientele, not necessarily what is it that, the marketing department wants or the accounting department wants. It's what is the actual business need here. As far as e-commerce in a post-pandemic world, we're still seeing. Sorry, go ahead.
It was, when does e-commerce shine
as
a part of business practice? That shine was a very key word in your original question.
Ooh, all right. When does it shine in a post-pandemic world? We still see a lot of e-commerce presence. So when does it shine? It shines in the fact that we can get our information out in front of our clients and then either sell them online or bring them back into the store if we want. There are still a lot of people who don't want to go into a brick and mortar store and be exposed to people. Of course, I was like that before the pandemic myself, but so that's where it really shines. It shines as being that advocate for your product, for your service, right? It's the 11th salesman. It's that guy who's working 24/7, 365 and never sleeps. That's when it really shines.
Yeah, I would agree on that. And then also with e-commerce, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of pivoting. Imagine you're in a brick and mortar, you have that fixed inventory in your store. And on the floor itself, if let's say the something in the very back corner is suddenly selling really well, I have to take everything down from that current shelf. I have to take everything down from the shelf up in front, move all of the inventory up in front so the shoppers can find it. With e-commerce, I go into my listing pages or my merchandising tools and I say, boost this trending item, pull down that other item. Because your back room, your warehouse, you don't need to move anything. You just need to know how much is there. Another thing is really accelerating some of those fulfillment options. The people that thought that e-commerce meant I wasn't getting anything for a week. Now I can go online, place my order at home, get in the car, and by the time I get there, I can pick it up most of the time. So giving that sense of urgency now and letting your customers know that is part of e-commerce. I mean, my acronym game, BOPIS, is on point because, buy online, pick up in store, having the will call. This stems even into where I focus a lot of time in the B2B sector, doing things like will calls or truck pickups, where now they could get a notification and it'll have the doc number they have to attach to. You know, having all of those niceties that you had with in person now getting funneled into workflows online is just fantastic.
We're seeing a lot of that. I can think of 3 examples right off the top of my head where even before Bopus became a buzzword, we were starting to do it.
Is it Bopus or Bopus? Because I just want to be clear.
Ooh,
Bopus.
is this a
Pull
GIF?
it.
You
GIF
said
question?
Bopus. Yeah.
To me, it's Bopus.
It's like
Bop it.
Is it? Yeah, that's it. It's like the Coke and Pepsi challenge.
Yes.
It'll be endlessly debated.
Well, we all know that Coke is the right answer there. Actually, the right answer is Dr. Pepper.
Jinx, you owe me a Dr. Pepper. All right.
In my office.
You drink diet, though. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So continue. You have 3 key examples.
Oh, if we really want to go into those, sure.
Yeah, I do.
Mars Electric was one. So that was a project that we just did. I don't know, I'm losing track of time, but I think it was mid last year. And then they had basically, they would do deliveries. So they had their own trucks. You would buy online, schedule it for delivery, and then their own trucks would come out and deliver it. There was some special pieces there because just like buy online, pick up in store, you can't do that if you're in California and they're in South Carolina.
So that's BOGID.
Oh man!
Buy online, get it delivered.
I think my brain just melted there a little bit.
I told you acronyms, buzzwords.
Still the same idea, right? Instead of you going to pick it up and then
yes.
But Techo-Bloc, which this is a fascinating project. I would love to talk in depth. But Techo-Bloc is a Brendan, the word's escaping me, landscaping company. They sell a lot of landscaping bricks and those type of things. And same thing. You could order everything online, figure out what it is that you needed, and you would literally go there and pick it up. And then I'll be honest, the third one's actually escaping my brain at the moment. So we're just going to say I said 2 and leave it at that.
That sounds good.
But it is becoming more and more common.
And I guess the third that we could talk about is you talked about getting it delivered as well, but then also we learned about the curbside aspect of pickup, right? Where you don't even have to get out of your car and they bring it to you. The other factor I would also say is the return aspect. And especially during the past several years, 3 years to be exact, with the pandemic, we really saw a pickup in the increase of products and I've talked about this on the show before, but even the loyalty to a brand being abandoned in order to be able to get something quick. However, that also then resulted in more returns when people were dissatisfied with when they bought from just whoever they found that had inventory. So it's just an interesting aspect of how when you lose the brand loyalty and you look at the fact that you're shopping with the first that you find an inventory with, if your messaging says how long to expect to be delivered, would you still stick with that brand that you were already loyal to before? And if they are clear about that, and I talked about an experience a number of episodes ago, we'll have to look it up and reference it later. But overall, I had a whole couch buying experience, ordered the whole thing online, was told about how long it would take. I go, oh, okay, with all the logistical nightmares, sure, that's acceptable to an extent. Then, right when I was supposed to get it's going to ship and you should get this delivery date, I get and we're delayed by another couple weeks. And then another couple weeks go by and I'm delayed another couple weeks. And at this point, I'm a couple months past when I was expecting to receive it. And then I get another, now it's 3 months later. And so completely abandoned that purchase, canceled it. Ended up actually, for that manufacturer, still buying from them, luckily, because I found something at a local clearance store that they had that sufficed for what we needed. But we made concessions, thank you. And we said, you know what? This one is good enough, even though it's not the original one we wanted. Was a different color, but that was okay. Still worked for the room, at least that I can tell. Who knows? I'm not an interior designer. And overall, the online e-commerce shopping experience benefited me to an extent. But then when the messaging failed me, I completely said, hey, I'm done. And so I think that's just a lesson learned of when we see different aspects of both the function side of and feature of, hey, we offer these new ways that you can come and pick up or get it delivered or purchase certain things online. we have to always think about the messaging that goes along all the stages of that buying journey. From the product detail page that's going to explain to me, hey, this product may take X number of weeks to be delivered to you. Tell me up front. And if you're honest with me, the transparency, another buzzword, by the way, because it goes right along with data privacy. And that then lets me as a consumer know, and you set an expectation in my mind, and make sure you set an expectation that is as realistic as possible. Yeah. You can never be perfect. There's no such thing. But with that, when you message correctly, that makes a huge difference. And especially when you're buying online, it makes even more of one.
I completely agree with that. And now everybody knows global supply chain was difficult, right? So people are willing to give a little bit more leeway, but everybody has a story, Tim, just like yours.
It was delays. It was bad on everyone. That's the thing, is everyone was worried, like, I'm going to lose sales to my competition. Be like, they're in the same supply chain that we all are in.
Yeah. But the ones who had the right messaging, I felt, were the ones who actually maintained the loyalty throughout. Yep. Now, all sorts of different aspects about that. We can't go into all of it. So I want to go into our last topic here as we kind of approach our wrap-up point. But I want to make sure we hit it because it is a fun one for how it was listed for me to make sure that we talked about. And that is tax. If you're not thinking about it, you're doomed. Because that's exactly how Roger wrote it to me when he said, this is a topic I want to cover. So hopefully I got all of that correct for how long you wrote that out. I can't believe that your spell check underline red didn't give you like that little frightful moment before you hit send. But let's talk about taxes and how, if you're not thinking about it, you're doomed.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Now, this is a U.S. based viewpoint, right? So we know VATS has its own aspects to it. But currently, tax laws in the United States for e-commerce are in a constant state of flux. It used to be wherever you had a physical location, that's where you paid tax at. And then now suddenly it's tax nexus, which we don't have time to go into what nexuses are. But at the same point in time, the laws continue to evolve, right? And a lot of times what we see is nobody's thinking about these things, right? It's, I need an e-commerce site. I need an e-commerce project. I need a new e-commerce whatever, but we're not thinking about tax. Oh, it's just tax, do tax. That's not like that anymore. It's extremely complex to where we need somebody, the CFO or somebody from finance, to get involved there and have an opinion, basically, of what tax should be. All too often we get to that stage where we start talking about tax and everybody is just staring at each other going, well, it's tax. You just take it. No.
So at Shop Talk, was there a lot of tax sessions?
There was not.
Okay. Why do you think?
Well, I kind of think it's because of exactly what I just said. Nobody really thinks about tax. Everybody knows what tax is. Everybody knows we have to take tax.
It's an obstacle.
But yeah, it's an obstacle. Nobody talks about it. The only reason I had it on my list is one of our partners, that's their thing. Yeah. So they wanted to talk tax. Yeah. And it was a fascinating conversation, especially where things are going. We need to be aware of it.
Well, I know for one, like here's something that I learned recently is tax rolls uphill. So if you're not charging tax on your e-commerce site, well, what happens is I'm sure many people have started or at least completed their federal income tax this year. And, when you go through the little wizards of Intuit or TurboTax or whatever, they ask the consumer, did you pay tax on your e-commerce purchases? And like every good U.S. citizen, you say yes to that because that's true. You paid taxes on your e-commerce. But then when it comes to settlement, if they find out there is something lacking, they go back to the e-commerce site and they say, hey, you have to pay taxes on these products that you sold. And if they bought it from a distributor or the manufacturer and it wasn't for resale and they didn't collect tax, they have to go back to the manufacturer. And the government will get the tax, whether it's from the consumer, whether it's from the seller, whether it's from the distributor, whether it's from the manufacturer. And that's the big thing here is from the top down now, as the manufacturer, as the distributor, if you're going into e-commerce, you want to make sure to collect the taxes appropriately, because regardless, during your end of year settlements or on your reports, you're going to be charged for those taxes that haven't been collected yet.
Right. And it's not an overly complex thing. I mean, tax is overly complex, obviously, but the thinking about it and the implementation of it it's not going to be half your project, right? But it's not one of those things that you can sit there and wait until the last minute. If we think about it up front, we can plan for it up front, and then now you're okay.
Decades ago, when I was having to deal with a company that had good number of products online of different types of materials, taxes were a nightmare.
Oh, well, yeah.
Then you find a good tax partner, though, and then they handle a lot more of that heavy lifting. It's incredible, to your point, how we can now integrate in a tax solution that provides a lot more seamless experience, less manual intervention, so that you can then really get the taxes set up correctly overall.
Right. I'll walk back my comment a little bit because I see where you're going. Yes, tax is ultra.
Are you moonwalking it back?
I am. I'm moonwalking it back.
Perfect.
That's
there
how
we
we're doing
go.
it. Tax is complex, right? Especially once you start talking tax exemption
Yes,
or tariffs if you're importing, exporting. So yes, tax is ridiculously complex. But it's the aspect of the project, right? Because if your tax is that complex, from the project implementation standpoint, that's an easy win. We're going to get you paired up with a partner. That's all they do is tax.
Yeah.
Now it's easy for everybody in terms of implementation.
Yeah. And I mean, it's having that shield because a lot of those partners, they do audit protection. They do all the documentation management. So if somebody does say I'm exempt, that service is going to kick back and say, I'm sorry, your exemption certificate expired last month, and it automatically charges tax again. Yeah. So having all of that work done without needing to do your end of day settlements or doing callbacks, like it's one of those pieces. And I know it's been looming over our heads as consultants for the past decade where, you know, it's only going to take one law to drop that says, if you're not charging e-commerce, everything's coming back to you. So whenever it happens, and we know it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. All right. So Shop Talk, successful show, good lessons learned. The one thing that I think that is a unique fact is I saw the world's biggest speed dating setup.
Yes.
For the one-on-one sessions that were for meetings, football fields long, of just tables for one-on-one meetings. Now, I have to say I did a couple of those, and they were actually really fun. You only had 15 minutes, and it was not actual speed dating. It was conversations. I'm with you. Overall, just for our listeners so that they know, and especially my wife, who most likely never listens, but I have to mention her on every episode. So I'm definitely going strong here. I think this is episode 51 at this point overall. And yes, so incredible that they had that set up. But I was just, again, to an earlier point that I made, amazed at the turnout for Shop Talk this year. And I was actually really excited to see that and to see people in person having the conversations, understanding what others were doing with the challenges and roadblocks that they faced or the successes that they've had in certain areas or channels. And I think that's that, biggest lesson learned as we look forward in the future is make sure that you're finding the right conferences for what you need to do. Consider different team members who might need to be exposed to the different session material, to potentially different partners. And as always, if you have any questions about e-commerce, about websites, about digital marketing, reach out to americaneagle.com. At this point, though, I'm going to have to wrap up our show because if we keep going longer, we're going to have to split this into 2 episodes. And really, I don't think we have enough content for another that's going to be valuable because we're just going to go off on tangents on a whole bunch of other stuff.
After dark.
So, yes, maybe that's a future one. Shop Talk After Dark. But right now, I want to thank you for tuning into the future by listening to the Lessons for Tomorrow podcast. For more information about the topics discussed today, check out the description of this episode. If you want us to cover a topic or submit feedback, email us at lessonsfortomorrow@americaneagle.com and let us know. Be sure to follow this podcast wherever you listen to them or watch them to stay up to date. And while you're at it, if you wouldn't mind giving us a rating and sharing this podcast with others to prepare them for the future, we'd love it. Don't forget to follow us on social media, where sometimes I'm there and sometimes I'm not, depends on the day and the channel. This episode is brought to you by americaneagle.com Studios. I'm your host, Tim Ahlenius, and I'll catch you in the next lesson.